first-round pick of the Cowboys. He's talking sports on 97.1 The Fan in Columbus, and also you get to see him on a variety of ESPN channels. You can follow Bobby on Twitter at bcarp3, bcarp3. Bobby, top of the morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. Mark, how you guys doing this morning?
Well, we are fine. On the angst scale of 1 to 10, 10 being burn the house down, where is Buckeye Nation today? And quite frankly, where are you? Because you are part of it. And from following you on Twitter, you've not been a happy Buckeye.
I have not. I think the house may have already been burned down. Now you're just sitting there sadly looking at the ashes, maybe with a cold pop in your hand and sitting on like a 5-gallon bucket with your head between your legs thinking, how did it go so wrong?
Well, how did it go so wrong, Bobby? I mean, of your criticisms, what would be your biggest criticism as to how the Big Ten handled this?
I guess you could parcel it out a number of different ways. If they talk about, the long-term effects and all the uncertainty and everything, if that was the case, it was going to be the case in April. Tell everybody in April. Let the student athletes go and enjoy their summer. Don't ask them to be incredibly responsible, to keep their numbers low, and to try to go in and train and do it in a responsible way, and to make sure that, hey, we're going to try to have a viable season, and we're putting the onus on you to make that happen. Because across not just Ohio State and the Big Ten, college football at large, sure, there were some spikes at the beginning, but then all of a sudden that began to dissipate. The student athletes took it serious, and for what I've seen, I think have done a terrific job. And especially, the medical staffs as well with it, giving them first-class care at a lot of these universities. The second piece of it is you took the decision out of the people's hands who are going to be the most impacted by it. The student athletes and their families, the parents, the players, getting together, sitting around, hey, do we have any health issues? Okay, if we do, well, you might not be able to see grandma all season. Okay, is that something you're willing to risk? All right, what are the potential fallouts for you? What are the opportunities that could be created? How would your mental health be if you didn't play? You weigh all of those things in the collective basket, your own personal cost-benefit analysis. Like, that's what America's built on, the risk-reward of anything, taking a job, getting on an airplane, whatever it is you want to do, you have to have that own personal risk profile. That was stripped away because most of the players wanted to do it. And frankly, they were giving them an opt-out. Kevin Warren said we didn't want to encourage players. You're not encouraging them. You're just giving them an opportunity. You're giving them an out if they don't want to do it, and they receive all their full benefits. And then you're trying to decouple the football players, the student athletes, with the students in large, because it's been told forever that how they're one and the same. And so you're going to let tens of thousands of students back onto campus from all across different cities, states, and regions of the country. You're going to allow them to live two in a dorm room. You can't social distance in dorm rooms, at least not in the ones that I've ever been in or the ones that I lived in. And so you're going to be in there with some strangers. And those people aren't near as responsible as student athletes because they have much less to lose. These guys would be trying to play a football season. And then you go to the long-term liability of this. Well, the myocarditis came up and all these things, which has been around for a long time. Heck, it's what Reggie Lewis died of. And you're going to tell me, hey, you can't do this because of this potentially happening. Well, the Big 12 comes out before you return to play. You're going to be able to have an EKG. We're going to do blood testing. We're doing echocardiogram, a cardiac scan on your heart to make sure that everything is good. To make sure if you do have an issue, we're not letting you back out there. And so we're going to try to mitigate every potential thing. And if you know what, you still don't feel comfortable, hey, you can always opt out. And so I guess I just look at all of these things and say, everybody's done the job that you've asked them to do, and you weren't even willing to try to go out there, let them practice in pads, see if it goes, see if the numbers rise, maybe play a game, then see if the numbers rise. No one's asking the Big Ten to go out there and commit in blood that you're going to play 10 games. Let's just play one and see how it goes.
Well, that's where I'm at, Bobby, for what it's worth. I'm just surprised. It almost seems un-American to not try, quite frankly. We're talking with Bobby Carpenter, former Buckeye standout, 97.1 in Columbus, and you see him on a variety of ESPN shows. Going to ask you to go back in time only a little bit here. What do you think your future would have been if you didn't get to play, say, your final year at Ohio State? If they took it away from you the way that they are taking it away for a bunch of players in the Big Ten and Pac-12 and other conferences, and you went in the first round. do you think you go in the first round if you don't get to play that final year? Do you think you would have transferred and gone and say, hey, I got to play, I got to put film together, I got to go? I mean, how different do you think your life would be if they took that final year away?
Oh, it would have been completely different. I toyed with coming out my junior year, and best case scenario, probably a third round pick. And that was probably me trying to talk myself into it. Probably more fourth, fifth round pick. And Joe Burrow said the same thing. Like, he went from being probably a fourth, fifth round pick at best to being number one overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, changing the trajectory for his family future forever, all because of one season. And so, is transferring a realistic possibility? The problem is all these other schools, like, they're probably almost full boat on scholarships anyway. And so I don't know where you'd be able to have an opportunity to get in. Could you transfer and walk on? Yeah, you could do that. Would you be able to get immediate eligibility? I don't know. You'd have to put your name in the NCAA transfer waiver Plinko board and see if it falls into the right slot for you. And hopefully that would be the case. But, I mean, who knows about the certainty of that either.
And we've all watched Plinko. 9 times out of 10, they end up with $100 or $500. They never get the 10 grand. We all know that. And that was actually our poll question yesterday, Bobby. Would the NCAA actually allow the kids from the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the MAC to transfer and give them immediate eligibility? And we asked our listeners to think as the NCAA. And it was about 57% that said no. I think that's a low number. Bobby, you've worked in this industry for a long time. Do you think the NCAA would even come close to granting immediate waivers for these kids? Because if they did, you think what that could do to some of the programs and the conferences I just named.
Well, so here's the thing. The NCAA is essentially it's comprised of all of the schools in Division I. So you have to make a decision. Are there more schools not playing or more schools that are? And because if you have more schools that aren't playing, especially the big boys in the Power 5, if you're the Big 12, ACC, and SEC, heck yeah, you're going to put pressure on the NCAA. You took away these kids' opportunities. Don't blame them. It's the Big 10 and Pac-12. Let them transfer. And so, yeah, they should be worried. And the Big 10 and Pac-12 are going to fight their tails off to not let it happen. But that doesn't matter. Like, I honestly almost think that they should be granted waivers to be able to do it, because this was taken away out of their control. No different than if someone committed, they get to school and the school is on sanctions for something that happened 2 years before. It's not those kids' fault. They didn't do anything wrong. They did everything you asked them to do. And so I know that the Big Ten and Pac-12 will fight like heck to stop it. You have 3 other conferences that will be for it. We'll see what happens. I don't think that it'll probably be the case, but you never know.
He's Bobby Carpenter, former Buckeye standout, had a nice NFL career. He's on 97 Win the Fan in Columbus, and he's also on a variety of ESPN shows. You can follow Bobby on Twitter at bcarp3. At the end of the day, Bobby, have you been able to find out, did Ohio State vote along with the commissioner to cancel football in the fall? Ultimately, what did the president of Ohio State decide? We're trying to follow this from afar. We understand, don't the Buckeyes have a new president coming on board in about a week and a half? So who voted and how did they vote?
I don't think there's anything that's been publicly put out there yet. From what I heard, it was a 6-8 vote, with Ohio State voting, the new president, Christina Johnson, voting yes. I'd heard Michigan voted yes, Penn State, Purdue, Iowa, and Nebraska. And Iowa and Nebraska, I think, were in it the whole time. I think some of the other presidents may have got on board because, frankly, if they knew it was a losing battle and they couldn't get winning votes, you'd rather have your name in the yes column to be able to go back to the people in your state and at your college and be like, at least I tried. And so from what I had heard, she had voted yes. I don't know if she voted yes with the intention of wanting it to actually work, but my problem is you have like Rutgers and Maryland in there who were probably on the no side from what I've been told. And those are the 2 votes that probably swung it for certain. And they're not really trying to win at athletics anyway, at least not football. Like they joined the conference because of monetary constraints. So, they're still collecting their check and they're going to be happy. They're not really active contributors to the conference.
Not to mention they're not even getting paid the full amount yet. What the hell are they getting a full vote for yet? I mean, I'm a Big Ten grad, Bobby, so I wanted Big Ten football. And as you said, I've been in dorms at a few of those schools. Yours, the one I went to in East Lansing, and the one in Ann Arbor. You can't social distance in a dorm at any of those campuses. We are all well aware of that. Bobby, how close do you think Ohio State was from blowing? Because they are the #1 draw in the sport. They are. They're the best television ratings in the sport. If they picked up their ball and left, it could have been done. How close do you think Ohio State was from creating full-on college football Armageddon?
I think they probably talked about it, but let it die. I mean, I love Gene Smith, the AD. He's done a lot of great things, but one thing with Ohio State, with Michigan, with Penn State, and you throw Nebraska in the mix now, like those four schools really drive everything that goes on in the Big Ten as far as eyeballs and viewership and branding. And if they wanted, they could have swung this if they wanted to. If they wanted to say, "Hey, we're going to play," and anyone else that wants to play with us, go ahead. Kevin Warren would have been powerless, because that's where the value and the TV money comes from, is from those teams, especially Ohio State. I wish they wouldn't be as compliant and be in it for everybody else, because everybody's not in it for them. And they're essentially taking a hit now because they're trying to do what they believe is right to make it best for everyone, even though if it's not in their own self-interest.
If the other three Power 5 conferences in the AAC are able to pull this off, even if they're able to play about 8 games and have enough of a season in which the college football fan nationwide goes, all right, way to go, nice job. What's the long-term impact on the Big Ten in your estimation? We happen to believe Ohio State will be okay. That you guys will still get your players. You'll still be a top 5 program in the country year in, year out. But we think the trickle down is going to be disastrous. What do you think it will be for the rest of the Big Ten if the other Power 5s are able to pull this off?
It's going to hurt perception-wise. Like, I don't think there'll be a mass exodus of players, but it's going to hurt in recruiting. You're still going to get the players within your geographical footprint for the most part. And Ohio State's still going to get the best in the Midwest. The problem is now that you have a harder time going nationally, because every other conference is going to sit there and say, hey, these guys, they tell you they value football as much. And sure, they got 100,000 fans and they've got all these things and they're the most watched team in the country in Ohio State. But the reality is, when it came time to put up or shut up, like their president in their conference essentially took a knee and said, this isn't really what we're about. And so you're becoming the Ivy League then, like where sports were really important and now they're not. Like, we're not going to prioritize it the same way. And that's going to have an impact on high school kids when you're recruiting them. And it'll take 3 or 4 years to potentially dig out of that recruiting hole, which in college football, I mean, that seems like a lifetime.
There's no doubt. And I think the school you most like to beat is affected the most by it, because Michigan has been a national recruiter for as long as I've been alive, and they have the academics and the history and all of those things. But if they lose a year, I think they really get beat up by the SEC school, the Big 12 school. I mean, Ohio State's always going to be able to recruit nationally because it's right now a factory. I think Michigan really takes it on the chin. Do you think spring football, which is what they've thrown out, and, Urban came out an hour later and said that ain't going to work, which that was a ringing endorsement for the Big Ten. Bobby, do you think spring football has any chance of working in the Big Ten?
No, especially not if the other 3 conferences play. Like, who's going to play? You're going to have to me, it's the ultimate cash grab. Like, you're going to try to sell this to your TV partners, and you're just going to try to put people in the stands to recoup some of those losses to try to make it your athletic department viable so you can have any sports. That's the real issue. If you don't have football, you're not going to have anything. And the best players aren't going to play. Like I said, it's a watered-down product. And what are you playing for? If the other 3 conferences have already gone off, they're playing for a national championship, which this team at Ohio State, it's inarguable that they're one of the best 4 teams. Like, you can make an argument that they have the most talented roster in the country right now. And so if I'm Justin Fields, I'm not coming back. I'll help him pack up his bags, man. I love Ohio State. Like, don't risk that for yourself for nothing, for a watered down conference title that nobody cares about. Like, you failed these kids, and now you're trying to pass the buck. They don't really want to play in the spring anyway. Like, they're just trying to placate to people saying, we're going to try, we're going to do this. They're not trying. If they were going to try, they should have tried in the fall.
I hear mornings are in your future.
Mornings have always been part of my life. I like to get up and work out at 6. You caught me just after my workout anyway. So, yeah, we're going to hit we're going local with morning drive. So me and myself and one of my former teammates, Anthony Schlegel, and one of our other hosts, Brandon Beam, on the show, are going to start the morning juice here at 97.1 The Fan and get everybody pumped and ready to go. And it'll probably be a rough go of it here in the fall. Hopefully the NFL keeps going, but it's you play the hand you're dealt, and even if it's not a very good hand, you play it as well as you can. And I just wish Kevin Warren would maybe learn that.
We all?
Maybe the Blue Jackets will give you a run.
Start pulling for the Jackets, Bobby.
Listen, I can't handle another 8-period marathon. Like, that was the most exhausting day of my life. Tuesday, and there was even no good payoff at the end of that. I got the Buckeyes taken away from me, Big Ten football, and then I watched 8 periods essentially to watch the Blue Jackets lose. It was a painful existence.
Hey, Bobby, look, we're all just fans, but you played at the highest level in your sport. When you're watching 8 periods, and I know you're not a hockey player, you're a football player, but when you were watching that, what were you thinking about the players? Not so much the play, but when you're watching these guys play a marathon like that, as an athlete, what's going through your head?
I started thinking about the longest game I ever played in. It was a triple overtime game against NC State in 2003 with Phillip Rivers, where we ran like 11 off. We were up 24, like 7 at halftime. We ran 11 offensive plays in the second half, which means we played pretty much the whole second half and 3 overtimes on defense. I think we played like 95 snaps or something. It was incredibly hot for Columbus. I remember you're just delusional, delirious, like, okay, just keep going out, just keep operating, and hopefully they'll make a mistake. Just do your job. And we stopped TJ McClendon like a half yard short on a 2-point conversion to win the game. I remember just like wanting to celebrate, but just not having any energy to.
Bobby, thanks so much for your time. All the best in mornings beginning next week, and continued success on the Fan and with ESPN.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys have a wonderful day.
You too, Bobby. Thank
Bobby
you.
Carpenter. Follow him on Twitter at BCarp3, the letter B, Carp